Joined as always by Eric Alwan, the voice of Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino after the second weekend of live racing in the books, which included the Red or Green Stakes, the Bold Ego Handicap, as well as the Corralito Stake House Stakes. A lot of racing over the weekend, and that's going to be the staple, Eric, every weekend here at Sunland Park, especially for those stakes races.
It really will be, Steve, kind of fast and furious throughout, and kind of ironic that H.S. Paul Walker, named after the actor that was in all those great Fast and Furious movies, he won the stakes race. H.S. Paul Walker did the Red or Green Stakes, but we're going to be so busy from here on out, you know, at least a couple of stakes races a weekend. And we've gotten such great response locally. So many people have been coming out. Just on opening day, we were throttled with great business. The parking lot's been full. So the word's out that we're open, and pretty great reception.
Let's talk about H.S. Paul Walker. This was a horse that was one of the favorites, and a horse that did exactly what he was supposed to do for Hector Aldrete and also Alfredo Gomez, the trainer. It's a good team and a horse that wins for the 8th time in his career, taking home the winner's circle out there at the Red or Green Stakes.
Those are names to remember, Steve, if you're looking to maybe make a little extra bucks here at Sunland. Names that maybe people aren't that familiar with, but are awesome. That Hector Aldrete, quarter horse rider, I think he's already got 9 wins already in the young meet. And this Alfredo Gomez is something else. He had the horse really ready. H.S. Paul Walker has been a horse that has been a little peculiar. He's had a long career. He's always been fast, but he's had a bad habit of either veering out to the right or veering into the left. And he's been disqualified at least a handful of times for not running straight. Well, that seems to be behind him now. And now you're just left with a very fast quarter horse that knows what to do.
Let's talk
about $8 to win, I think.
Well, and again, you know, this is kind of the fun right now. So if you come on Saturdays, which is a day devoted to quarters, along with Fridays, and then the thoroughbreds Sundays and Tuesdays, you're always looking for that edge, Eric. You're always looking for maybe who you can place your wagers on as far as jockeys and trainers go. And maybe we got a little preview of what this meet's going to be like with that big win from H.S. Paul Walker.
You know, in some ways, Steve, I think that it's a little bit easier to handicap the quarter horses. Sure, it's all about the start and it's a short distance, but there's no strategy. There's no angling for position. I mean, either you get out or you don't. And I think about 10 to 50% more of the time, the best horse wins in a quarter horse race rather than a thoroughbred one, because there's so much more involved and so much more that can happen in a thoroughbred race, which involves tactics, pace, turning. You know, you got to turn in a thoroughbred race. Most of our quarter horses, except for the 870 races, are straight. So, you know, it's simpler in that regard, but you got to know the players. You got to know these trainers and what they excel at. And that was certainly the case with H.S. Paul Walker and Alfredo Gomez, the trainer.
Meanwhile, Sunday, as I mentioned, thoroughbred day. And it's funny, Todd Fincher joined us on preview day, and we talked to Todd about really, you know, his stable and his growth and domination and what he's turned into. And it's continued on Sunday, along with Steve Asmussen. These are 2 of the best trainers you're going to find anywhere. And they both had horses winning the stakes races, the Corralito Stake House Stakes, and also the Bold Ego Handicap.
So true, Steve. And when do you get 5 to 1 on a Todd Fincher horse? Can I answer that? Never. But you could last Sunday. I don't know how Through the Storm went off at 5 to 1. And Todd had another one in the race. A lot of the money was on Antonio's Mark, who I've called a lot of races in my day, Steve. That horse just, I mean, it was trouble from the get-go. But I have to also underscore that Through the Storm broke last, and he was able to overcome some trouble and passed every horse in the race and won it. And just shows you the depth of the Todd Fincher stable, and his devotion and the way that he gets these New Mexico breds ready is amazing. I see him at the big time soon, Steve. I really do. You know, like an Oaklawn or maybe a Santa Anita. I don't quite know what Todd's plans are, but there's got to be someday we're going to see Todd with a horse in the Kentucky Derby for sure.
And that was actually a pretty competitive race, especially with Jockey Clue and Antonio's Mark right behind, Truth Storm on their way in.
It was. And again, we saw the riding talents at force there. Luis Fuentes, our leading thoroughbred rider from last year. Man, he's got a great clock in his head and was able to not panic and get through the storm to come from behind, and just a 6 furlong race, which is considered a sprint, but he was able to do it. And we had all the people from Corralito Steakhouse joining us. They're our food partner now, and they were very happy with the way things turned out. And I think they gave away a $500 gift certificate to the winning team behind Through the Storm so that they can enjoy the great food at Corralito Steakhouse.
Love that. Eric Alwan is the voice of Sunland Park Racetrack. He joins us every week here on our Track Talk as we recap the weekend and preview the week to come. Let's talk about that Bold Eagle handicap. Speaking of tight finishes, man, this was another classic with Ari Oakley being able to eke out a win over Flying Fallon and Outside the Law. This one went right down to the finish.
Beauty. It was a beautiful race, Steve. Gunrunner is the daddy of Ari Oakley. Gunrunner was the horse of the year in the United States, I think in 2017. And Ari Oakley comes to town. She was an allowance winner. I think she had 3 wins under her belt, but I think Steve likes to come here to get what's called black type for his female racehorses. It adds the value of a future mama. And that's what Ari Oakley's probably going to be, but still got a lot of racing ahead of her. But it shows you that Kentucky and New Mexico they used to be vastly different levels. Maybe they still are, but the gap's closed. And here's Flying Fallon, a New Mexico based horse throughout her career. And she made Ari Oakley work. These two were probably 5-6 lengths in front of the 3rd place finisher. And it was a dynamic finish. I think I sent you the photo on it because it was so close.
Yep.
And maybe the difference, Steve, was Alfredo Juarez aboard Ari Oakley, winning his 4th on the day. But it goes to show you, though, that Steve Asmussen picked the right race, coming from Kentucky to come here to run in the Bold Eagle handicap. And he did come through. It was a great finish. His lifelong friend, Casey Lambert, our trainer, and Casey's lovely bride, Brandy, were kind of in the winner's circle to substitute as the ones that received the trophy. It was really, really nice. Casey and Steve grew up together kind of here in this neck of the woods and in Ruidoso. And I think they both rode at the same time in the early 80s.
Wow.
It's just really a nice little nugget that we produce. So many racing greats have come out of this area.
We have some pretty talented fillies, don't we?
We do. And it's nice because they're going to be the mamas of the future. And Ari Oakley was a speedy type, had pretty much everything go her way. There was a hot pace in front of her, and she waited. Alfredo's so smart. I think Alfredo's closing in on maybe 4,000 career wins, but we're looking forward to, the fillies running. They're also going to be running on the quarter horse side of things in the Lou Wooten Sidney Valentini on Saturday, but that's of course for the quarter horses. There's a really another nice horse that Todd has, and it's a quarter horse, Me Moonflash. She'll be running in that race, and I think she's going to be pretty tough to beat because the race is 400 yards. Sometimes Me Moonflash doesn't break all that fast, but she gets 400 yards to deal with and a very handy 10 post. So nobody can hit her from her right. And even if she were to break slow, she could still maybe win.
That's the featured race on Saturday, folks. That is the 400-yard Lou Wooten Sidney Valentini handicap. That's nominations closed on Friday. And then Sunday, you've got the La Senora Stakes. That's a 6 furlong race for 3-year-old fillies. Both races, by the way, $100,000 guaranteed purse.
So much money. You were at the press conference and you heard Dustin say $16 million season. That's got to be one of the richest seasons ever. And it's only, it's allotted out over the 55 race days. It's really something to have all these 6-figure races. I wish there was a few more horses in that race. Todd's going to have an imprint on that one as well. He's got horse called Do or Not a Faker and Crossfire Cowgirl. Alfredo's going to ride Crossfire Cowgirl while Luis Fuentes rides Do or Not a Faker. I mean, Todd's got the powerhouse riders behind him. However, there is one Bart Hone horse. It's going to be super dangerous. That's Hannah's High Life, who already has a win against winners here this season. So she might have the edge and might not be favored.
I was going to ask you who you think the morning line favorite could be in that race.
Well, it might still be Hannah's High Life. I'd like to see the buyer figures and the speed ratings and all of that. But, you know, you really got to, if you go against Todd Fincher, you know, you're doing it at your own peril. That kind of happened in the Corralito Stakes. So usually around these parts, if Todd's got a horse running, they're the ones that are favored. Now, it's interesting if he has two in the race, you'll have a choice in price. You know, both of them can't go favored.
That's very true. Meanwhile, you mentioned Alfredo Juarez Jr. You know, you look at what he's doing out of the gate. Luis Fuentes, Luis Negron, terrific jockeys on the thoroughbred side. And how about Noe Garcia Jr. on the quarter side?
World-class quarter horse rider. He likes to ride a lot for the Danleys. And I think you're probably going to see him with a lot of great mounts. We had trials the other day for the Shoe Fly, and I know that he qualified some there. One of our favorite trainers, Wes Giles, qualified some horses as well. And there's even Flash Divine, who's going to be running in the Shoe Fly. And that horse was the top qualifier for the race. And the Shoe Fly in its 50th renewal will be happening in a couple of weeks. That's on Saturday, January the 28th. We're getting really close, Steve, already out of the bat to some really fine races. The Winsham Lad will be on the 22nd. That'll be, you know, a couple of Sundays from now, and that'll feature the older thoroughbreds. Who knows who we're going to see in that one? Probably horses like Sheriff Brown and others from the Todd Fincher stable. And it's really not too early to start thinking about the Sunland Derby, because the Riley Allison Derby, the first local prep, is on the 29th of January.
Wow, right around the corner. Excellent. 12:25 post time for racing on Tuesdays, along with Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Hey, depending on what you love. If you love quarters, then you got to come by Friday, Saturday. If you love thoroughbreds, you come by Sunday, Tuesday. If you love it all, then you just come every day for live racing, Eric.
Sure, and pick your spots like you do.
Always a good conversation.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week, Eric.
Of course, sir. Thanks.